Hello everyone, I am Thomas Logan from Equal Entry, and I'm excited to be here today at Access Israel 2021. I hope I can be there in person next year for 2022. I'm going to talk to you today about native app accessibility basics on iOS and Android. So this is a short introduction of some really easy wins you can do for accessibility on these two platforms. I'm coming to you all today from Tokyo, Japan, so I apologize that I can't be with you virtually in the same time. But as I mentioned, I really hope next year we can all be together. I'm in Israel and I get to meet you all in person. So let's kick off with looking at a tool on iOS and macOS called the Accessibility Inspector. This is a developer tool that developers, either for yourself or for a member of your team, you can run a series of checks on your code inside of Xcode, the Apple developer tool for building these experiences. I'm going to show you a quick example of how to use the Accessibility Inspector. So here I am inside of Xcode, and I have downloaded the Fruta example, which is a 2020 SDK sample from Apple. We can go to Xcode, Open Developer Tool, Accessibility Inspector. So this is great that this tool is built into the operating system's main developer environment. So one of the first things we want to do, I need to build my application. So I'm going to start running Fruta on a virtual iPhone 12 phone. So this is my virtual environment. So inside of Xcode, you can pretty much load up any version of the different iPhones, iPads, Mac operating system environments that exist. We start off with a menu page for this app. So we can see that we have lots of different smoothies that we could potentially order from this store. Now on the Accessibility Inspector, what we need to do is use this drop down, and you can run this inspector on your phone or you can run it on the simulator. Today I'm showing you a demo of the simulator, and this is something that a developer could do as they're building their iPhone experience. You would select the simulator. One thing you can do quickly is click this target icon, and this is basically a way to hover over different elements in the UI and get a description of what the inspected element is on the right hand side. Now the most common task is going to go to the second tab, the Audit tab, and then you can click Run Audit, and Run Audit will then run a series of accessibility checks on the page that you currently have displayed in the simulator. Now on the berry blue smoothie screen, let's click the Run Audit button. After a few moments, we get a set of checks, and these are all things then as a developer we can take a look at. We can look at the color contrast for things like the menu color here, so that pink and white color needs to have some evaluation, and potentially we can make that a stronger contrast and make that work for people that have accessibility requests. Then we also have another task. Let's look at potentially inaccessible text. These are all things we can inspect and learn more about inside of the tool. Another way we can use the tool is to go back to the Inspection tab and click on the target to hover over elements in the UI and find out what they're communicating to VoiceOver. So here we see that this icon, which appears visually as a heart, has a label of love and a trait of button. And if we click on the speech button, we can get the operating system to tell us what VoiceOver will read if it encounters that element. It tells us love button. So this is kind of a nice way for developers to test and use a screen reader without actually having to load the code onto their phone. And so I think these three features are a great way just to get started in looking at accessibility on the iPhone and inside of the developer environment. Now I'm going to show you a very quick testing tip on your iPhone directly, and I'm sharing my iPhone to the screen through QuickTime, which is also just a great thing to know. If you're working on accessibility testing, you can connect your iPhone to a Mac and with QuickTime display your phone on the screen. So here's my number one tip for testing with VoiceOver. If you set up an accessibility shortcut, you can press the power button 3 times, for example, and then I get these accessibility shortcuts that display, and I can choose to turn on or off VoiceOver. So one tip is get accessibility shortcuts set up so that you can quickly turn VoiceOver on and off on your phone. And now this is the US Postal Service mobile application. And this example is just to show you really quick test, easy to do for almost anyone. Once you have VoiceOver running, take 2 fingers and swipe down from the top of the screen to the bottom. And VoiceOver will start reading the elements that it encounters in sequential navigation through that phone UI. So here I see that zip codes button, schedule pickup button, hold mail button, change my address button. By using this UPS mobile application, terms of use, you agree to these. Contact us, privacy policy button. So I know I'm going very quickly here, but the idea of this test is you're looking to see if the screen reader 1 is reading everything that we see visually on the screen, and if it's reading it in the correct order. So because I do this a lot, I noticed that while I was reading by using this UPS mobile application, terms of use was read next. So to be logical, it should be reading, by using this USPS mobile application, you agree to these terms of use. So with that very quick test, I see that there's a problem with the elements being out of order. And for developers, this is a very simple fix. There's lots of documentation on the web on how to go fix that. But if you run this test on all the screens of your mobile app, it's a great way just to find out, hey, is everything that I use in my app have a label, and is it being read in the correct order? And if you find an issue, work with the developer, or if you are the developer, go in and just make a quick fix. These are like 1 minute to 5 minute fixes if you have done the training on how to make your app accessible. All right, so now I'm going to switch to my Google Android device, and I'm going to show you the accessibility scanner that exists and can be installed from the Google Play Store. So here I'm going to use a tool called Visor so that you can see my screen. So this is Visor showing my Android screen. And under the accessibility settings, if I've downloaded the accessibility scanner, I can turn on and say Use Service. If I click the Allow button, I will now have this blue checkmark icon that sort of hovers around on the screen, and you can drag and choose where you want that to be displayed on your screen. But let's open the same USPS mobile app, but now on an Android device. And let's try going into one of these screens. So just like on the Mac operating system, we can run an accessibility scan of any page that we load inside of this application by clicking this check mark and saying take a snapshot. So here we see the accessibility scanner has 2 suggestions for improving the experience. If we click the list icon, we can see there's one recommendation to make the touch target larger for the label button, and then one recommendation to make the touch target larger for the scan button. So there's only a few elements on the screen, but both of these buttons could be made larger to make them easier for someone to tap with their finger. And there's tons of other accessibility checks, and what I like about this tool is you can just keep loading your application, going screen by screen, and running these checks on each page. With that, I want to say thank you all for the opportunity to speak with you all briefly today. Again, my name is Thomas Logan. I'm the founder of Equal Entry, and I also am the organizer of 2 online meetups for Accessibility VR, Virtual Reality, and Accessibility New York City. You can find me on Twitter at TechThomas. You can find my website at equalentry.com, and you can find me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/n/TechThomas. Thank you for your time today, and have a great rest of the conference.